Call this meeting of the regular meeting of the Vergennes City Council to order on June 12th at 5:30. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, I don't believe there are any amendments to the agenda. Visitors.
Chance is actually on
The agenda, so he, we'll take care of him then. Okay, approval of minutes, so,
I'll make the motion to approve last meeting's minutes.
yeah, the minutes of May 22nd. Second, it's been moved and seconded. Okay, any changes to the minutes? Okay,
Two items under visitors on the first page, second line. We're invited to the meeting to discuss their proposed price increase. I think it should read rate increase rather than price. And then skate park site visit, second line. Something he felt was helpful, I think would be is more accurate, helpful rather than was. That was it.
okay, I have possibly two. On the last page, Mahawi appeal, second line, it says city manager advised the Superior Court, it probably should be environmental court. If it's Judge Durkin, that's environmental court. How would I know that, you know? And in the mayor's report, last line, it says, we'll get back to the city council with the charge and requisition? I'm not sure what that word is. Just say charge, just with the charge.
Did you mean resolution, or was it charge is good?
And charge will do it.
Okay.
That's it for me. Any other amendments? All those in favor of the minutes as amended, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. And citizen comments? No? Citizen comments? No? Business, item 5A, easement to Addison Northwest School District for water pipeline to Vergennes Union Elementary School. Al, that's your thing.
Sure, so the contractor approached me a week or so ago relative to a new service line at the Vergennes Union Elementary School that will be serving the new sprinkler system at the school. And as you can see, if you can follow the property lines, this connection and a portion of the line goes over a little chip of the, I'll call it the pool property, if you will, or the recreation property. Obviously, the reason why they wanted to put it over there was to get to, this is all going to be pushed underneath. It's not like they're digging a trench all the way across there, but they really did not, they would prefer not to put that line underneath that whole row of trees. And so I also spoke to Ken Sullivan, who's the Director of Buildings and Grounds, and I went ahead and used our sewer line easement template to create a water line easement template and put this together. So I don't see us building anything over in that corner, to be honest with you, so.
I need a motion to approve that easement.
I'll make said motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Just a statement on the school board, so there might be a conflict, but I don't see that there's a problem with it, just throwing it out there.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. 5B, application for license by Friends Theater for show at Bixby Memorial Free Library.
So I do want chance to explain what he's going to do, but before the city council takes any action on his request, I didn't want somebody jumping out and taking action, and I'll explain why in a minute.
Yeah, my name is Chance Koenig. I'm the founder and director of Friends Theater. I'm planning to have a production at the Bixby Library, but I found out about a law that says any theater productions, yada, 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 need to have a permit or license to perform. So, if that is okay, I would like the license, which is $25. Yes, that's, yes.
So I think that we actually uncovered a long-standing error in our ordinances, and I should have copy on it, but if you want to Google chapter 14 of chapter 4 of our ordinances, that make reference to circuses, carnivals, and shows and the like, and there's an exemption in there for school and church property, and I just got to believe that when the city council adopted that ordinance in either 1974 or 1874, that they really overlooked the concept of having shows on city-owned property. I think it was just, totally overlooked. And I can tell you that I would prefer and recommend that you give Chance his $25 back, and that the council take the position that shows on city-owned property are exempt as well. And the reason for that is I really would not want the city council setting a precedent, or better said, breaking the precedent, because that would mean every time the city band plays in the park, the ordinance does not speak only about outdoor shows, it speaks about shows. And obviously most circuses and carnivals are outside, but that's not what the ordinance says. So, in theory, every show in Vergennes, except on school and church property, would be required to pay the $25 fee. And although, as much as I love money, and this is a little bit of a moneymaker, I really would suggest that you treat Chance's proposal just as city government has treated all shows on city property.
Probably it'd be good to have a motion to that effect.
I'll make said motion. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any addition to that motion?
Are you gonna rewrite the ordinance?
Yes, actually, that brings up a good point, and that is, back, I guess, a couple of years ago, at least a couple of years ago, we started a revision of all the ordinances, and we got through some of them, and we never finished it. And so I've talked with Mel, and we're going to start that process again and finish them up after he leaves. So he doesn't have to get into all of that work, but we really need to do that. We have some ordinances that are really, really outdated. So with that, all those in favor? What?
A slight bias on this one, so I will abstain.
I think actually he wrote the check, and so
I did.
he actually has a financial
I have a
interest in the
financial
outcome of this decision.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Thank you.
That's
June
fine.
23rd, June 25th at the Bixby at 5:30.
So you can come to the show and then walk over to the green and have strawberries and watch the band.
It's on Monday.
Rain or shine?
Rain
Well,
or
it's
shine,
inside the
it's
Bixby,
indoors.
so-
Oh, okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Nice job.
Okay, item 5C, dog warrant, and you have that, and I think this is something that we all have to sign in order for it to go into effect. We don't really need a motion on this, do we? Do we need a motion on this, Joan?
Not if they're going to
Sign it. Okay, so I'll just,
Not sign it. Under protest.
oh, okay. This copy that I got in the packet. Is this sufficient for signing?
I'm going to say yes. I checked with Melissa and Joan at the end of the day, and none of these people came in by 4:30 today,
And
so.
all of those people, they got the regular notice citywide, everyone gets in the newspaper out front and all that. In addition, they've received 2 letters and they've been instructed, if you no longer have your dog, let us know, we'll take you, adjust our records accordingly. No one has made contact with us. I mean, our list was much bigger. We're down to these remaining ones. And what's been protocol is the police officer just goes to the door and says, you need to register your dog. And that's when they usually say, oh, they don't live here anymore, and, you know, or that dog's in Connecticut now, and we just deal with them, and we know where they all are, and they either register them or they're no longer here. That's our tool to get it done.
So, I'm older than you, so what was why did you object last year? I don't
Because one of the
remember.
last things is the police, if they take it, they have the authority to kill the dog for not having a license that somebody didn't pay for it.
And we have never even
I
taken
know
a
that,
dog
but it's
out of
just
the
the
house.
principle of it, that there's no reason
So-
a dog should be destroyed because its person couldn't bother to do what it's
Yeah,
supposed to do.
but that's the
I
law.
think that's actually in the state law.
It
that
is.
way.
It is the state law.
Yeah,
I know.
Wow.
they need
And I
an,
meant to talk to Diane last year after this to say, you might want to adjust that because that's just bad. But I
It does
didn't.
say, you know, if a dog or up above, it does say that if a dog or wolf hybrid cannot be placed in an adoptive home or transferred to a Humane Society or rescue within 10 days or a greater number of days, the dog may be destroyed in a humane way, all right? So the dog does have one more chance,
I
Mark, you
understand all
know?
that,
It's
but
not like the
still-
cops go shoot it at their doorstep.
I realize that. It's just, if the dog is rabid, you can destroy it. If the person didn't pay their $8, dogs shouldn't be dead.
okay, so we go on to 5D, the Vermont Municipal Bond Bank sale, and there are a number of documents that need to be approved as well as signed. They either have to be signed by the whole council or by me. So I guess we could take a motion to approve all three?
All three of those, yeah.
All three? So a motion would be in order to approve the resolution and certificate, the municipal tax certificate, and the loan agreement.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Do you need any, does the council need any explanation on this, other than this is how we're getting the $500,000? And there's lots of paperwork associated with it.
So Lynn, at the last meeting, we talked about holding on this and, you know, because we're going to borrow this money and get a check cut, you know, $500,000 available to us in July when the truck isn't going to be delivered until mid-December or maybe mid-January. Joan and I talked about it, and we really felt that to just go ahead and do this, because one of the things is that if the truck arrives in December, we actually, if we wait another round, we don't get the money until February. So now you're talking about bond anticipation notes, and we can't, you know, I won't be working here, but, you know, you can't afford, we don't have $500,000 kicking around here unless we stop paying the school. So anyway, and also when they do sell the bonds and the money is given to us, we will invest it in money markets. And I don't want to necessarily say that we'll make money, but we might make money. We might end up investing at a higher rate than what our bond rate is for that first year. So we just felt, let's just get it done. And because we have our audit, we're all set, and just get it in.
Okay, so we have a motion, unless there's any, that's for all three, and unless there's any further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we get into the real stuff.
Are you gonna pass those for signatures?
Oh, yes, yes.
Sure they
Yep.
get some.
These that I'm passing around, there's a paper clip for each division. So just flip the paper clip and you'll see where you have to sign and where I have to sign.
You have to sign 3 times.
Okay, Mel?
So the recycling, I sent you out a Vergennes Recycling Program Fund budget, if you will, which is, other than updating the numbers, is what is typically provided to you in the past. However, I will say that this year is unlike no other. The point being is that in the past, I have been able to negotiate a fixed rate with Casella for the monthly bill for a period of July 1 to June 30, and therefore enabled me to put together recycling contracts for Ferrisburg, Addison, Panton, and Waltham for that same fiscal year. This year, because of the extreme volatility in the value, or I should say lack of value, for recyclable materials, Casella will not fix the rate at all. And so we have had some communication with the Solid Waste District, and currently the Solid Waste District takes recycled materials and in essence subsidizes their tipping fee, which is currently at $50. And so the number that I gave you at the last meeting of $8,800, I think it was a month, which was calculated at $81 a ton. With this $50 rate, it gets the number down to $7,772. Still, a extreme increase of about 30%, nearly 30%. In talking with Terry at the Solid Waste District, their current rate is $50. It is not fixed either, but she felt quite confident that that rate would stay the same through December 31st, 2018. Therefore, I would suggest that we move forward with continuing to run the recycling center and contract with the surrounding towns for 6 months, not 12 months, and hopefully between now and December 31st, it'll be a little clearer. But I really don't think it's in your best interest to assume all of this risk for the other towns and leave the city of Vergennes holding the bag on the center. So this is the first time this has occurred in 40 years or whatever. I don't know, he's 30 some odd years. So anyway, that's my recommendation, that we in essence approve this budget. However, offer contracts with the surrounding towns for a 6-month period through December 31st, 2018.
And how about a motion to that effect, approving this proposed budget for a 6-month period of time with the towns?
I'll make said motion.
Okay, we've got the motion and a second. Now, what we're going to do, meaning me and Mel, we're going to encourage the Solid Waste District to get a little bit more active in getting the towns together to see what our alternatives are relative to running the center, how it should be. Maybe there are some options as to how we could run it, where we could spend less money for all of the towns, but there needs to be some meeting of everybody that's in that facility to see where we go next. And they should be the ones that are leading it. It really is the Solid Waste District's responsibility. Is all of the waste that's dealt with in Addison County is really their responsibility, and they should be taking the lead to help us through this.
So they are in the process of and are considering a sub-transfer station, if you will, somewhere in northern Addison County. And the problem is that these things take time. I mean, there's permits involved, there's land acquisition, permits and the like. I don't see the district doing this and having it up and running by January 1, 2019. So you're not done talking about this, and some long-term solution is probably a little further away, unfortunately. One of the things is I really don't know how the 5 towns are going to respond to this. I mean, I can see, that's why my recommendation was to offer this to the towns, and because I really don't know what they're going to do. They may bail on this relationship here, not only with the city but also with their own citizens. They may opt out and leave folks on their own. So.
So we're accepting a year-long budget for a 6-month period.
Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say yes. I mean, I got to have a number. I got to put a number in there. I mean, we could do this differently. You could adopt a 6-month budget. I could chop all of these numbers in half, and then you turn around and revise the recycling budget in October, November, December. You could do that to cover the second half, but it's very possible that these numbers might stay the same for the next 6 months. I don't have any idea. But I understand your point.
Yeah, and seeing some of the things on the other budgets that we're going to look at tonight, I would think that this would be something that we need to look at as 6 months, not a year. We don't know who's going to be leading us in 6 months yet, and there might be other options. There was a good letter to the editor in, I think it was in the Independent, about how much it costs to have recycling picked up at your curb, and it's like $400 and something a year. But if everybody were to pay $100 for a sticker plus the budget, we wouldn't have to be paying $45,000. So, I mean, I think there's other things we have to look at here before we accept a year's budget at $45,000.
So one of the things, Lynn, is that let's just walk through this. Let's say that the city council was to say, listen, let's adopt a 6-month recycling program budget. You could do that. All right, and have contracts with the other 4 towns for 6 months. Perfect. The problem is that then there's a line item in our budget for $45,500. I can't remember if I changed that.
It's 45.5.
I need to look at my proposed budget because I don't remember going back there. My point is that if you were to change the line item in the budget to $27,750, then you just made a decision that you aren't in the recycling business on January 1.
And maybe we're not.
On the taxpayers, all right?
Right.
And so one of the things, and I did change it, good. Okay, so over in the proposed budget, I've proposed $45,500. So I think they certainly, they relate to one another.
Yeah, I understand.
But that one, if you set that number of 45.5 to 27.5, or leave it at 45.5 and create some revenue stream that's what you're talking about, a revenue stream that Joan ends up collecting and collecting stickers, okay, to in essence offset that cost. That's I think that you don't want your budget necessarily making those decisions this evening. That'd be my, but I mean, you got more time. You don't have to deal with it tonight.
No, I know, but I wanted to know
Yep.
why it was 6 months and yet we're doing it for a year.
The only reason why it's 6 months is because I'm quite confident that the solid waste district's rate of $50 per ton for recyclables that in essence come from our recycling center and all of the recycling centers in Addison County and land at the Addison County transfer station, that $50 a ton is going to remain $50 a ton, but only through December 31st, 2018. And let's say that the market for recyclables continues to have no demand. What happens is there's no value there, and so the offset of that value against the operational expense for processing makes that $50 go to $60, go to $70, go to $80, all right? And the solid waste district is going to be looking for that money.
I understand that, but here's my real question is, we set a budget for a year for 45.5, and in our heads, we're doing a 6 month budget of half of that. So let's say, okay, we make some assumptions and we continue that on, but in January, that goes, because this is saying, yes, we're gonna continue with recycling and garbage and the whole thing. So we say yes, and it goes up to 80 a ton. So we're gonna be running a deficit budget in the recycling.
Not if you have new contracts. Let's say that the 7,700 goes to 9,000 a month. And so the next 6 months, if it goes that higher, we would write another 6 month contracts with the other 3 towns at a higher rate for the 6 months. The city, there's a share over here of 45. I can tell you right now that one of the realities is that the $45,500 in my proposed budget, I can't guarantee that.
Right.
I can only guarantee it. I can only guarantee the first 6 months. I'm not going to start apologizing like I did the
not your
last
fault.
week. I'm not. Yeah.
But we can,
I don't expect any apologies, Mel, from you until the day you retire, so,
we can,
yeah.
well, we can certainly revisit this, if you want to, think about
I
it.
think the key, I really need to communicate with these towns, okay? And I don't know, and I don't think the picture is not going to be any clearer in 2 weeks. It just isn't. So I think the motion is, my recommendation was to offer to the towns a contract, a 6 month contract based on these numbers. Now, I can tell you, I am kind of working all day long, all right, and how am I going to deal with this? And so I can tell you, I should have put another column here and cut Ferrisburg's number in half, cut Panton's number in half, Waltham and Addison's in half, so that really we're really looking at this as a $45,500 6 month budget. You see what I'm getting at? And you're going to be writing another budget for the other 6 months some other day. And I probably could have or should have done that.
So how do you do the tax collections on this?
The tax on our end?
Yeah.
Our tax collections, in essence, is going to be based on that one line item, that $45,500 that is in the proposed budget.
And if that comes out to be 75,000?
Yeah,
We'll be short.
that's a problem. Or if you close it down, if you close it down, you're 27.5 ahead. You're only going to spend the 45. You're only going to spend 27,750.
Okay.
I'm 22,750.
Well, we do have a middle option, don't we? That we can either subsidize the 100%, we can shut it down, which is 0, or we could do something in the middle where people
Right.
would have to pay something to
Right.
recycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's, exploring those options is something we need to do with the other towns also, because there are other options out there. I had a email from somebody and saying, I don't know, she whether watched the television or when we discussed this before, and said, well, I'd be willing to pay a few dollars just to get rid of my recycling. No problem with that. Don't close the center, you know? So that is an option, to have some small fee that people pay. And the only thing is that the things like this, waste control and so on, as so many things, is controlled by the buck. And when it becomes not easy and it costs, that recycling is going to end up all over the countryside, not where it belongs. That's the downside of all of this, the real downside of it. So anyhow,
Well, the fact that somebody called up and said, I'd be happy to pay, that's simple, all right? The hard part is collecting it, policing it, who's got a sticker, oh, my
Right,
car's in the
right.
shop, my
It's-
sticker's on
it's
the
very
windshield. I mean,
complicated.
it is just, you wanna have costs get out of control, add some administration to this, because I can tell you right now, the only administration that we have is I cut 12 checks a year. That's all I do. Okay, so, you know,
so we have a motion on the floor. And are we keeping that motion the way it is at this point? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we go on to recycling,
to sewer, yeah.
jumping into
How
the
fitting,
sewer.
how fitting.
Yes, I know, what a great follow-up, the sewer budget.
Okay, so I've put this budget together and been quite careful, as a matter of fact, relative to everything in here, and relative to how much revenue we will derive at our current rate of 106. If you remember, we raised our rates from 96 to 106 in October, and so actually what I did is I went through the last 3 quarters of the billing at the 106, and I've done some projection for, Joan has already billed May. She's got one more bill in June, for June, the overages for June and the overages for a few of the accounts or quarters, and that 695 is a good number. Penalty and interest, if that's going down, it's not because I'm doing such a great job collecting delinquent sewers, but I can tell you before I get done, I'm going to be collecting some delinquent sewer. So the more I collect, the less penalty you're going to get. So it's not like we're losing revenue. And then down below, you can see that I can tell you, Rick Chaput, relative to chemicals, if that is not a typo there, we have actually totally switched the type of chemicals that we use at the wastewater treatment plant from an aluminum based project to a product called Slack Plus 70. They've done all kinds of testing in that, and I think we've only spent about $26,000 so far this year, but I do want to fill the tanks and whatever. But that right there is the result of good operation. And so if you look at go to the bottom, this revenue picture and this expense budget will actually add $10,000 to your fund balance. So instead of, in the past couple of years, you notice that the budget has grabbed money from the fund balance, and now I'm looking to be able to put money into the fund balance. I might just well pass this out. Sorry, you're going to have to work from the bottom up, but let me give that there. And I think there might even be enough to go to Andy as well. And so we'll look at this from the bottom up. And one of the things that I typically do is I start forecasting year-end fund balance, and this is the worksheet that I do, that I continue every time that we have a meeting and pay bills, and every time Joan does a payroll, I'm updating this thing all the time so that as we get closer and closer to the end of the year, I can fairly accurately predict a surplus. And so if you look down into the sewer fund, I can tell you that you'll notice that the revenues, we budgeted 662. Joan has billed 680. She's going to bill another 13 or 14,000 at year end. Expenses are at 640. And so obviously we're going to continue to pay power bills and the like, but you can see that the expenditures over revenues right today, as of today, which includes all of the bills that are in your packet, because I ran a report just before I came down here, that fund balance is going to $50,000. Now, obviously, we have bills and payroll, so don't think, wow, we got $50,000. You know, I can tell you, there's $14,000 worth of billing that's going out. There's way more than $14,000 worth of expenses that are going to be made before you close out the year. But I'm very confident that you'll have money in the bank. So Mr. Koenig, I actually feel pretty good about this 106 rate here, particularly in light of the fact that I really the sewer line replacement fund was getting down to fumes, basically, and you'll see in that proposed budget is to put $40,000 into that fund, and that's really a minimum amount of money that you should be putting into that fund, because we need to continue to invest in our sewer lines. As we find problems, you invest. So I feel pretty good, and Rennie and I were talking about it earlier today. I think it was our last bond payment is I believe it's due on December 1, 2022. That bond payment is $123,000 and some change. And so that light, you know, I mean, that's really, if you think about it, it's only 4 years away, all right, that will not have any debt there. So that's not to say that there won't be till the next project. Yeah.
But,
yeah. So anyway, I'm certainly not recommending an increase in the sewer rates. So.
all right, so this one we can dispense with, if it's your pleasure. So I could take a motion to approve the sewer budget. It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or discussion on the sewer budget? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So we go to the general fund budget.
So I will apologize about the fact that I sent you my first supplement, and it made reference to saying, here's the administration, police, public works, and general miscellaneous, and everybody opened it up and said, where's the police, all right? And I immediately said, Rennie, I said, must be the pages got stuck, and they didn't get stuck. I'm the one that, I did finish that budget, but I didn't print it, and obviously it didn't make it in your packet. And as a matter of fact, it was actually, I'm almost glad that I didn't get it to you, because I really needed to meet with George one more time before I put together my, at least my recommended budget. So what got sent out late in the day is, in essence, the general fund revenue and expense budget. And I think, and Rennie and I talked early today, and you know, depending on how much time you want to spend on this tonight, you may want to think about it, and I'll tell you why. And that is, the way that I put this budget together, you know, obviously, you know, I'm leaving, and you have a search committee to replace me. I certainly, you know, I am aware of the fact that there is some discussion about having another person doing zoning. I certainly am aware that there is some considerations for an accounts payable clerk, so I know about that. And I don't know where you're all going to land, but I thought I would at least start plugging in some numbers for you, so that, but I some of these numbers, I really don't have any sometimes when I put a budget together, I don't know that I ever pound my fist, but, you know, some things, if I say, listen, that's what the electric bill is, you don't cut it because that's what the bill is, all right? But there's a lot of things in here, I don't have any, you know, I'm not in the,
It's a heart
I'm
attack,
just,
that's all.
well, I'm sorry, all right, yeah, so anyway, here's the situation, is I put this together on the assumption of not having any kind of a surplus. Now, I can tell you, when you go back to this sheet, you know, I can tell you that on the revenue side, there's not a heck of a lot more revenue that's gonna come in the door for us. You know, there's gonna be some land records, a little zoning, there's gonna be a little interest in pending, but there's no revenue, Joan, right, that's gonna come in the door here. Police fines are down, we are gonna get another check that'll come in the door, but there really isn't any big pile of money coming in. So the revenues, you can see, I think that the non-budgets can, you know, distort the picture a little bit, but let me just tell you that you can't rely on revenues to increase the fund balance. On the expense side, same story that I just told about sewer. You know, we got payroll, we got bills, you know, fuel bills, you know, fortunately, all of the insurance bills are paid. So anyway, I highlighted some things here, and one is just to tell you that if you remember about the $60,000 with the police cruisers that we set it up in the police, and I've never changed my numbers, that we budgeted to pay the $60,000 back to the water tower fund, and that's what we have done. And I view our fund balance at $159,000. The audit will tell you that you really only had $99,000, but your auditors don't care about the $60,000 expense from the police department back into that fund. And so I could change that 860 to 800 and change the 159 to 99, and the math will still get you to the $198,000 surplus. It doesn't change the picture at all. So, do I predict a $198,000 surplus? No, I don't. Obviously, we don't have any more revenue. We're going to pay bills, you know, through the end of the fiscal year. I don't really know whether or not we're going to improve ourselves on delinquent taxes or not. So that number is going to continue to go down. I don't know how far down it's going to go. One of the things is that when you adopted the tax rate last year, you used $73,000 of the 159 in my mind, all right? And so you had about an $80,000 pad there, all right? So that's still there, all right? And the question is, are we going to add to that 80,000? And if so, by how much? So, knowing that, let's go back to the first line in this thing, and if you had no fund balance to offset the tax need, or decided to not use any of your fund balance to offset the tax need, your property tax need would go from $1,812,765 to $2,103,512. And if you want to know what that means, it means against a grand list of $22,600,000 of a 13-cent increase in the tax rate, and going from 81 cents to 94 cents. Now, you know, obviously, I'm not proposing a 14, these are my numbers, I'm giving them to you, all right, but I'm not proposing a 13-cent increase in the tax rate. What I am telling you is that if you're fine with that, that's fine, good, go for it. If you're not, we, and I say we got some work to do here, okay? So one of the things when Randy and I talk, you know, that there's a shock factor tonight, and so it's better not to work immediately after you've been shocked, and that's my experience. So I think you need to sleep on this and look at these numbers, and in another week or two, depending on what your schedule is, things will get clearer. as to really where we're going to end the fiscal year. I can tell you we have grievance on Wednesday. It won't move the numbers. It won't move the numbers very much. But anyway, this is a challenge right here.
So, with that, I mean, I was assuming, actually, both me and Mel were assuming that we have to get in some more time to work on the budget, the general fund budget. And we could add another session in, if that was your pleasure, although the 19th seems to be the logical one, except I won't be here, and I'd like to be around for the budget session. I mean, I deliberately scheduled me being away on a non-council meeting week. And so, but we have the option of picking a day and just do it as budget, or we could come in on the 26th earlier and work until it's done. That's another approach. But I think we're going to have to add in some more time. I mean, we take this home, we look at it, we're all going to have our suggested changes, and then we've got to discuss that and see how it works out. And also, I would like Mel to kind of go back through his numbers, because there may be some areas, now we know why you propose it the way you propose it, but there may be some areas where you think they really could be cut back. So it's really how you want to handle it. I think we're going to just need a little bit more time, you know, so.
Are you gone all next week, or just?
No, well, I'm gone Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
We have to warn the meeting, though.
Right, so that would be Thursday.
So we could either add, there's two places we could add it. We can either add it sometime next week, or on the week of the 26th, we have the Tuesday. We have until the 30th of June. So we could have another meeting after the 26th, someplace in there.
I leave on the 27th for Seattle.
Okay, so that knocks that one out. So it looks like we're kind of aiming towards next week. If you're going to have an extra meeting as opposed to making just a long meeting.
I think it makes more sense to have an extra
Meeting.
meeting. I think if we had just a long meeting, we might run into a problem.
Agreed.
I'm waiting for my phone to come back on so I can see the calendar.
So Rennie, I'm sorry, that means you're not available on next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Right,
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I thought.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
So
Monday,
Thursday, the
Tuesday, Wednesday.
21st
Yeah.
would be available.
Can I ask a question of Mel while you're looking at the calendar? How much does it take for a fund balance to move the rate a penny?
$22,600.
Thanks.
On phone?
When you're pulling it up, now, can I just ask
Sure.
another question? Just in reviewing this, and I'm reticent that I've missed it before, but we budget overtime, salaried overtime, and it almost seems to become a self-fulfilling prophecy that we spend the overtime that we've budgeted. Is there a specific thought process behind that? It looks like in police and public works, like we're, allocating 25,000, seems like we get pretty close to hitting that budget number.
So let's talk Public Works first,
Sure.
okay? Public Works, there is no scheduled overtime, none whatsoever. Any overtime in Public Works, and also in Public Works, when there's a holiday, they don't work on the holiday, all right? And so there's no scheduled premium pay for Public Works. And they work overtime when it's snowing, and they work overtime, there might be some, we got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do sweep streets or something like that. If there's a sewer line project that this is going to be on, so, their overtime is, it's totally driven by weather and circumstances, no question about it. Police, on the other hand, although the line item says overtime, well, actually, I think there's two line, we separate premium pay from overtime, all right? Premium pay is any time any police officer works on a paid holiday. Part-timers are paid double time, regular employees are paid time and a half. In addition, they can either book the holiday or take money for the holiday, and if they take money for the holiday, it's paid to them at straight time over in that line item. So, overtime, I can tell you that, you know, any of the grant work that we do is most generally done. There's only one part-time officer in the department right now, Mason Coleman, right? And he gets straight time unless he works more than 40 hours. When he's doing grant work, his straight time for grant work is covered by the grant. Regular employees, straight time is not allowed under a grant. It has to be overtime, and it's billed at overtime or billed at premium pay. So one of the things is that when George, somebody gets sick, I mean, if you only have one part-timer, all right, and somebody gets sick, somebody goes on vacation, you know, George has to use overtime. And so, you know, we have to put somebody on duty, and that's what doesn't occur in the public works. So we've got to fill the shift, if you will, all right, the so-called coverage, you know, we cover it.
Okay,
So,
got it.
So, Thursday is a possibility, except that's your golf day. I have a bye that day, so it doesn't make any difference.
yeah,
And,
it is my golf day. I don't have it, we have 8 teams in our league, so we don't have any buys.
Thursday is the only day I'm available next week.
So I could be.
Can this be considered an emergency meeting, and we can only have a 24-hour notice? Because what about this coming Thursday, 2 days from now?
I have golf.
Oh, okay.
yeah, and
And
I'm not available for this Thursday. So, I mean, it looks like, I mean, is everybody available next Thursday?
Yes.
Yep.
No,
No.
not till, well, I mean, 6:30, I'm probably okay. If I tee off at 4, I'll be back at 6:30.
That doesn't have to be a five.
Or a Saturday morning.
I'll be golfing on Saturday morning.
Well, we could do it at 6:30 if you want,
Works for me.
On the 21st?
on the 21st.
Okay.
Works for me.
Okay, so we'll have to warn it, it's going to be
What do you got? What is the day of the week?
Thursday.
At what
Next
time?
Thursday, the 21st, 6:30. We'll have to warn it, and we can warn it as a budget meeting. That's all we're going to do. Yep, work session, yep.
I have to go to a graduation event, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good idea, David.
You as well. Sorry to miss all the fun. Sure, I'll get my chance next week.
Oh, I'm sure. Okay, so, do we want to continue a little bit more discussion on the general fund budget, or do you think that's it for this round?
I agree. Table it for now.
Table it for now.
Okay. So, we'll move on to report of the city manager search committee.
So last week, the agreement with VLCT was executed, and as of Friday of last week, the position has been posted. We have an advertising schedule. It's back on the city website. There are a number of other websites that it has been added to, and our application deadline will be on July 9th. VLCT intends to provide us with 15 potential applicants, and that is their goal. The search committee will actually do the initial round of screening and interviews and hopefully be able to present the council with 3 to 5 applicants as we were charged. And the goal would be to have that in place by the middle of July. Rennie and I have had conversations with some potential interim manager potential possibilities. So that is underway, and VLCT is assisting us with that as well. I do have, if anyone is interested in looking at the advertising schedule or anything like that, I'm happy to share it, but it's pretty dull.
There are people that are available for an interim, and I mean, it looks pretty clear that we're probably going to be in the situation of having an interim for some period of time. The interims, particularly as we go through VLCT, are retired Vermont managers. And good many of them, the possibilities I know quite well, actually. And we did have a conference call with one today. I guess the only thing I would like to know from the council is that, assuming that we get into that position of having to have an interim, would you, as a council, like to have an interview or a meet and greet or something along those lines with whoever the possible interim would be? Because probably Jeff and I will kind of do the initial screening of who they are and that sort of thing. And then at some point, you probably should get involved. You know,
I think a meet and
and-
greet's a good idea, right?
you know.
Before we put them in the hot seat over there. Or
Want to be our interim? No?
So in a perfect world, that person would be in place about a week before Mel's departure, so there's time to do the appropriate transfer of information. And that's sort of the schedule that we're looking at.
So we think we're on everything that we need to be on to keep the process moving, and hopefully it moves a little bit more successfully as far as the number of candidates that VLCT will be able to find for us.
On a
We're
related,
under the impression that they can get us 15 people when they've just started this 2
that
days
is their
ago.
goal. That is their goal. They also have a pool of interested parties. They have a pool of people that they know might be interested in changing.
And yet they didn't mention that to us 4 months
They did
ago,
not mention that to us 4 months ago.
even though we are members of this.
That's
So this is a nonprofit organization that's supposed to be serving us that didn't bother to assist us. But now we're gonna pay them, and suddenly they have assistance. Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of how the way it works.
Kind of how it works. Yeah.
Yes, because, and also, actually, as we're dealing with interims, the interim that we talked to today said, well, I know of a person that may be interested because there've been some problems in the town that he's in, and, you know, not with him necessarily, but just problems as there develops between managers and their boards. And he might be interested. So, I mean, just from talking to the possible interim, we got a possible candidate. That would be a direct call. I mean, not waiting for the person to see it in a newspaper. They would be called by, probably by VLCT and say,
VLCT.
hey, you interested?
They've actually been contacted already with that person's name to see if that call will be made.
So,
I do have a little update from Shannon Haggett about the search for the zoning administrator, and they intend to start reviewing their applicants on the 25th. And they are also working on potential interim possibilities as well, so we seem to all be sort of on the same level.
and at some point, if the information we're giving you here is not enough and you want to get to the real nitty-gritty of who we've talked to and so on, we'd have to go into an executive session at some point if you wanted to get to that detail. I mean, obviously, we've talked with specific people about specific things that related to their possibly being employed with us. And because these people don't want to be known at this point, we'd have to do an executive session. But if you feel comfortable, at least with this amount of information that we're giving you, then we'll leave it that way. Okay.
That's exactly what we were worried about 10 months ago. It would be right here, and we said, we're not going to do that. We're going to be ahead of this. And we are right here.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah. Actually, you know, again, in talking with people, there are other places that have started earlier than we have, and we're in the same situation, ended up in the same situation, where they had to either re-advertise, or they just had to take more time, and it's hard to predict. I mean, sometimes it happens fast, and other times it takes forever. I mean, I just don't know which way it's going to go, so. Anyhow, I guess we'll move on. City manager's report.
So budget report, I already talked a little bit about, you know, how the current budget is when you look at it collectively, but I have a very current budget report, and I can tell you that I really do predict that revenues are going to fall a little bit short for really two reasons. One is it's not so much that we invest of idle funds, not counting the Davison Fund, the Watershed Fund, and the Donnelly Fund. We invest all of the other idle funds, and there's about $700,000 of idle funds, if you will, in all of the various funds, and Joan has them all invested in CDs. And those $700,000 in CDs, actually, if you do the math, it actually calculates to earnings of $17,700. So on paper, they look like they're good. The problem is that it's based on the market value of those certificates. And so I was looking at it today, $700,000 in face value of certificates, plus, Joan, you've got $26,000 or $7,000 in cash, all right? And so you have the face value of $700,000 plus $26,000 or $27,000 in cash. The value of that, obviously, the cash is still worth $27,000. But if you add the real value of those CDs and the cash, it only equals $686,000. And so what happened is that we made $17,000 in cash, but we lost $24,000 in value from the start of the fiscal year to the end of the year, unless suddenly June becomes totally different. But that's really where you're at. That's where you're at today. So we predicted that we would, and I can tell you, today I did a little bit more scientific review of this thing, because I wanted to see, because I know that at the end of the day, our accounting is based on value. All right, it's what did you start with, what did you end with. And that's what drives that line item. We call it interest earnings, but it really isn't. It's really change in value of your holding. So we budgeted $20,000, and that told you that I really thought that we had the bad year the year before and it was going to spring back. And it actually didn't spring back. It sprang down, all right? And I'm telling you, I'm budgeting $10,000. I think I budgeted $10,000 or $15,000 in this coming year. So I'm again suggesting that it's going to spring back. But you can see how no pun intended, you can't take that line item to the bank, because it's driven by value. I spoke about police fines and the like, which is down a little bit. And so again, I really think that the revenues are going to fall a little bit short. On the expense side, I think that if it wasn't for the legal expenses, we'll get into that in a minute here, the administrative budget is fine. When you look down through there, there's very few numbers above 100%. The one that leaps off the page is obviously attorney's fees. When you turn to police, mine is at 94.79%, Matt. So I feel actually quite good at this point, and The workers' compensation check did arrive. I think I told you that at the last meeting, and when you do that mathematical calculation, it made our workers' compensation be $100 over budget, and I can tell you we're not done with that, because once all of the grant work, the final reimbursement for June is put together and we can do a fiscal year reconciliation of that, we actually are reimbursed for workers' compensation and reimbursed for FICA and Medi. And as we get reimbursed throughout the year, I don't do a journal entry every time Joan gets $21.17. We wait until the end of the year, do a report, run a calculation, and do a one-shot journal entry. So that number will be, I'm not saying, when I say way under 24,000, it'll be probably $23,000. But that's where it's kind of strange for me to tell you that there's an expense budget where actually expenses are going to be lower at year end than they are right now, and that's an example of that. VEMR's is the same way. We pay 10.375% of police officers' salary into the retirement system, and likewise, the grant money covers that. So there's also a journal entry that reimburses us on the VEMR's. So when you see the VEMR's, we budgeted 45, we spent 38.9. That number's going to go down. So this thing will get a little better and a little better, Matt, as we. Yes, it does. Yeah.
Hail Marying right to yourself
you
in the end zone here.
Yeah. So I am coachable. Let me just tell you. When some. So let's see, but we're not. It's not over till it's over, right? Public Works, this thing when you look at the bottom, we've spent $635,000 against a budget of $761. You think, wow, that's way under. Well, I haven't got the bill for School Street. All right, so that's about $30K. We'll get that bill before the next meeting. We're still doing stormwater projects. All right, and so you can see those two line items. We are considerably under budget, but we're actually doing a lot of work in those. So it'll end up being under budget, but not to the tune of 17%. The general expenses are fine, appropriations are fine. So I think we'll just keep monitoring that number. I'll really, at the next meeting, I'll be able to hone in on this much better at the next meeting. Fire, as you can see, that really is the expenses that we have remaining. Is we have a 6 months payroll, which is about $8,000. That's going. There's a few expenses here and there, but I'm very confident about the $20,000 that you allocated of the fund balance. We'll be way above the 20 in that regard. And I think that we already covered. Sewer, and I'll do a pool budget for you at the next meeting. We'll be into the year. I won't bore you with anything at this point related to the pool, but we'll get that report to you at the next meeting, along with the special projects and improvements thing, all the water tower fund, all those funds. I'll have that ready for you as well at the next meeting. So that's that. Rectangular rapid flashing beacon project. So this project here, I gave you one of my beautiful drawings that I did, or a couple of them, and I just wanted to let you know that of the 5 sets, there was in one particular instance, we could not just simply locate this in its existing location, and it deals with across from City Hall. And if you go out and look at it, we currently have a pedestrian crossing sign in the middle of the bulb out that's in front of the Ryan block. And keep in mind that these new rapid rectangular flashing beacons, you need to be able to push a button. And I don't think you could climb across somebody's driveway and up into the bunch of flowers to hit the button. You've got to have this thing close by. So this is the only one that requires an island. And let me tell you, these islands are not cheap. Just to do the island is about $20,000. So we think that the project is still on budget, but the individual units actually cost less than what I thought. They cost $5,500 per set multiplying that times 5 sets, that's $27,500. The budget is $75,000. Dave Crawford is doing some project management for it. His expenses are not grant eligible. They're 90 cents on a dollar eligible for the other project, not eligible here. So I'm actually having him doing a little bit of work because when we tried to bid this thing all out, and it equaled about $78,000, and I didn't really feel that we should have to go over budget on this. And when I found out that we could buy the units for $27,500, I'd have them delivered down to the Public Works Garage, have my guys put them together, and have my guys involved with doing installation, but my guys can't do this work here. And if I can get over the sticker shock, I really think that we're fine, all right? That we're still well under budget, and so by spending a little bit more project management time, by taking care of the individual pieces, having the Public Works guys, we should be just fine. So the reason why I brought this to you is I can assure you that Jim Laurel can't stand this thing, all right? Just so you know, all right? Because it's one more thing to plow around. But Jim knows that it's not his call. He gets it, all right? So one of the things, I wanted to give this to you, because this is a pretty serious change. And let's say if the city council said, we don't want Jim Laurel mad, so yank this out of the project, all right? I wanted to give you that opportunity, all right? But I really think we need a good crossing there, and it's just the way it is. So if
We don't want Jim Laurel mad,
yeah,
but,
you need that.
yeah, we need to keep that going.
Okay, all right. So anyway, I'm gonna, go ahead.
Is there a reason we need the island rather than just sinking a post in the existing sidewalk?
Absolutely. Sidewalk is not, the sidewalk, that's the problem, Mark, is that the sidewalk is too far away. You can't see it. It needs to get out.
Okay.
It needs to get out there. See, all the other ones, you can see it, but this one, we need an island to be able to get this thing out closer to traffic, and we need to protect it, yeah.
Right. So if you've got it linking there.
Yeah.
These guys, okay.
Yep.
Now, hopefully, this island, which may end up being a decorative
Oh, absolutely.
bulb out.
Well, Jim says, well, if you're gonna put it, the top of it, concrete. I said, no.
Seriously. And
Green.
just
We'll spray paint it green.
just to give you a little history, all the bulb outs that we have, that are sponsored by companies and so on to take care of them, but putting them in was difficult. It was politically difficult. People did not want them. And they are proven to have a traffic calming effect, and they look good. But it wasn't easy to put them in. And hopefully, we don't get too much backlash from this one going in, but. Okay. Delinquent property taxes?
Sure.
Or do you need any, you don't need any action
Well,
on that, right?
if
As long as
somebody
nobody
makes a
reacts,
motion, pull a plug on that, and then you say so. If you're not, I gotta keep
Forging
cooking.
ahead.
Yep.
Okay.
So delinquent property taxes, what I've been working on, the first phase of this is dealing with any property owner who has delinquent taxes for 2016 and prior, of which there's really only 9, I think, something like that. And I did prepare delinquent tax sale notices for 4 of the 9. 3 got mailed. The 4th one hasn't been mailed yet because we've lost a property owner. We did find out that she has passed away, and I have my police searching for the other trustee, but they owe taxes for, actually, I think it's our number 1 delinquent taxpayer. So, but anyway, so I'm working on that one. So the other 3 have been mailed, and one of the owners actually came in today and made paid 40% of what they owed and has an agreement to pay the balance within the next couple of months, and so that one will take care of itself. So anyway, I'm moving along with the 2016, and then there's gonna be, as soon as we get to the 16th, Joan, when you post interest, I wanna wait until June 16th, because there's no sense sending somebody notice today that's only good for 3 days, so we'll do that on the
Till
16th.
15th.
And sewer, I ran a report, I know I only write delinquent property taxes, but we have a number of sewer accounts that are, people will not pay their sewer bill for literally years, like 4 years. I have a number of accounts that are that. And so their taxes are paid through escrow, all right? And so that's okay, but they don't pay their sewer bill. And so I've got to move quickly on those as well. So, and really that number, the tax part drives your fund balance, don't forget. I mean, the lower that we can get it on June 30, and improve our position. It's always nice to have a better position on June 30 than you had on August 30 of the previous year. And it's just how the accounting works. So that's that one. So I'm losing a few friends out there. Mahawi LLC appeal. I just wanted to let you know that, Matt, I don't know if you wanted to just.
Yep, disclosure.
Okay.
Thank you.
That David Schlansky has filed an appeal to the Supreme Court on this decision. And I will tell you that to date, the city has spent $13,000 in legal fees. What's a little strange is that what we're fighting about is the perimeter fence that was a condition of approval that was proposed by him. Has been erected. I've issued the certificate of occupancy, so I find it a little strange what we're fighting about here. But anyway, we are, and I did speak to Matt, and I wanted to find out, what are we looking at here cost-wise, and he said that from a budget standpoint, it would be somewhere between half of what you've already spent and what you've already spent. So somewhere between $6,500 and $13,000 more. I really can't believe this fence. There's been more legal fees than the value of this fence. And frankly, I gave a copy of this decision to you last time. And to me, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but that decision looked pretty clear. And I don't know what new points David's going to bring up in an appeal to the Supreme Court, and I even told David I'd rather spend my money on taxpayers' money on something other than legal fees, all right? And he thanked me for my opinion. So that's that one. We'll keep you posted. Other topics of interest. I printed out an email that I got from Steve Rappaport at the end of the day. I've been communicating with Steve, and I think it's because his daughter is shy, because she was going to come here. The Rappaports, they have a new puppy, and obviously, because they have a new puppy, taking care of that dog is high on their priority. And they've done some research and reminded me that in the downtown basin plan, is the proposal of a dog park down at Falls Park. And I wanted to relay that message, and if Steve's daughter was here, she would ask the city council to make that project a priority, and feels that a lot of folks would benefit. So I would like, we've done a number of site visits down there, but I would like folks to think about the dog park, about having a dog park on city property, and whether or not the Vergennes Falls Park is indeed the best place to have that, and maybe, I don't know if that falls under recreation or not, Rennie. I think I don't know, probably not,
but.
But anyway, it is something that at least one of our younger residents feels should be a priority in the community. And if it's something that you want to proceed with, I really am not aware of any grants out there for dog parks. I mean, basically, if you own the land, it's the cost of a fence. There is increased upkeep. A dog park is you got to mow around it, and there's some clean up, I'm sure. So anyway, I just wanted to relay that message to you.
Would we run into any Vermont power problems? The only space there is underneath the.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
discussed that. We didn't
We don't think so. We certainly would want to communicate with them. I think that we cannot have structures, whether or not it says fences. But we need to make sure that they have access, and so relative to the location of gates and the like, there might be, I can't imagine that it would be an absolute no. I think that we would just want to communicate with them.
Maybe be able to tap into some of the funds that we have through Green Mountain, beautify that.
I think that would qualify under it if they approved it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if they said, fine, you can do something under the power lines, and we asked them, well, we need $10,000 to do all the fencing.
Well, that's, that is certainly, that meets the straight face test, as far as I'm concerned, so,
Unfortunately, it's not just a fence, it's water.
Right.
Water bowls, disposal facilities for
Right.
waste.
Yeah,
It's all the
there's
little
pieces.
things that you have to put in a dog park and.
well, we
making
do
us-
have water to the docks, so one of the things is that there is a way to, you're talking about not like, but actually have like what we have in the park.
Yeah,
Right,
dog
yeah.
fountain.
Yeah, yeah.
Just get some buckets and go out to the.
It's the only thing the park is any good for, because we can't seem to do anything else down there.
My dog jumps in there. It's not
So
fun.
that-
So I can't think of, I'm hungry, to be honest with you, Rennie.
So I only have a few items. Actually, you gave me a segue into one of the things, and that is, I need to be appointing what I would term a implementation committee for the Basin Downtown Master Plan. And probably, it could be effectively a mayoral committee, although if you'd like it to be a council committee, that's okay. But even though in that master plan, a good many of the places says Vergennes partnership, Vergennes partnership, Vergennes partnership, as far as responsible party, I think we should create a committee that's responsible for the implementation, because there's lots and parts and pieces to that master plan. So I'll be working on that. The other thing is a recreation committee. I haven't got you a charge for this meeting, hopefully, not the budget one, but the next meeting after that, hopefully I can get something together as a charge. I think the recreation committee, it may be called something other than a recreation committee, probably should be a council creation. That way, it would be an enduring committee, because mayoral committees stop with the mayor. But you can create a committee and it'll continue on until you change it to something else. And I think probably we should have something like that. So when I do the charge, it's really going to be the intention for you folks to actually create that committee. It subjects them to the open meeting laws and all of that stuff, but that's probably appropriate for that type of a committee. Today I attended the Opportunity Zone Summit. We are officially one of the 25 opportunity zones in Vermont. And I don't know whether I can tell you much about it, because when you have a session that is, you're talked to by two CPAs and a lawyer, understanding everything that they were conveying about it. However, I do think there's some possibility with some industries that the partnership has been talking with, that we might be able to actually use it. And so more on that later, but actually Vermont was the first, because this is a new law, because they haven't even made all the regulations for it. Vermont was the first state to have this summit, because all the states that are using it are supposed to do this, to acquaint people with it. And Vermont was one of only 4 states that had the best rating for transparency in the process of how to establish it in the state. So it was pretty good. And the last thing I have is that I met with Sue Rakowski, and the school board, head of the school board, just to talk about the school resource officer. we've been getting some comments about, well, what about the school resource officer? And you know, all I could say is that, well, really, that's the school's prerogative to want to do that or not want to do that, and then we work with them if that's what they want to do, which pretty much was our conversation, is that the school is not in a position for a number of reasons to go forward with anything like that. I mean, one of the big things is expense. And what school? I mean, there's more than one school, you know? So, so that might be something that comes up in the future, future conversations, but right now, that's not the emphasis that the school board has. And I guess that ends my report, so.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.